Hi, everyone. This is Joshua Hoffman, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success and discuss a few things they learned along the way. Today, I have Brooke Sellas, the founder and CEO of B Squared Media, a digital marketing agency specializing in done-for-you social media, advertising, and social media customer care management. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today, and I've just loved getting to know you.
As am I, because I always like you. You obviously run your own podcast. You had one before, I think, and you kind of restarted another one. So I think it's always great talking to other podcast hosts and everything. I love your feedback at the end.
Of course. We're like a special little crew as we podcasters, I should say.
Exactly right. And so I want to start with your career hasn't really taken like a traditional line, especially with a lot of founders I speak with. And I mean, I guess I would say that a lot of founders do take a different line, but I wanted to dive into that. And can you basically just kind of tell us your story from college and how you eventually started your firm with this pub crawl?
Yeah. So I was actually working in nonprofit, and this was like 2006. 2005, 6, 4, somewhere early 2000s, close to mid 2000s. And I was working on a nonprofit, and they came to me and said, "Hey, you're a young professional. You know, this was in Dallas. You're hip. We need you to figure out how to get young people involved with our charity," which was the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And that's no easy task, because cystic fibrosis only affects 33,000 Americans, my sister being one of them. So really, most people don't even know that this disease exists. So I'm like, how on earth am I going to get people to care about this thing that they've never really heard about, right? So what I ended up doing was forming a young professionals committee. And we were all people who had like some sort of connection to CF, but we were all young professionals in Dallas. And at the time, Facebook was newish, right? Like there weren't any pages, there wasn't advertising. It was just all profiles. So what we decided to do was create a pub crawl, because what are people our age interested in? Beer. And we started a Facebook page. I mean, it was a profile, but we treated it like a page. Like we put a logo and we named it Generation Cure. And we, all the about stuff was about the foundation. And we ended up recruiting in 3 months' time, 7,500 people to attend this pub crawl. And then at the end of the event, we ended up making $60,000, which is like 16 times what most first-time events normally make. So not only did the Young Professionals Leadership Committee that I built in Dallas get accepted nationwide and implemented at all 80-something chapters, they also started doing the pub crawl at other chapters as well. So that's a very long story to explain that, like, that's how my whole like idea of social media being a thing, like a something for business, came about through a totally different industry.
Maybe, I don't know if this is a good or bad question, but like, what did you learn from that experience that you now bring to your firm?
Yeah, that's great that you say that, because I think why we were so successful is because it was still a profile. We were all involved. We were inviting our friends. It was all about like conversations among people. We weren't really trying to market the event. We were trying to collect people, if that makes sense. Sure. And I think that collaboration and those connections, like true connections, and all of the conversations that we were having on this Facebook profile led to that conversion of them coming to the event. Some of them, obviously just went to the event and didn't get involved with the foundation, but then some of them did become volunteers and join committees and things like that. So I would say it was a job well done.
Well, I'll give you another pat on the back for this next question, because to extend, before we get into the marketing stuff and everything, I want to continue kind of talking about the nonprofits, because I know that means a lot to you. And I think it was just on your LinkedIn, you've been a part of Best Buddies, Valley Crest Farm, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, Courtney's House. So the question I guess I want to ask is, like, what does volunteering mean to you?
Everything. I mean, so because I grew up with a sister who was terminally ill, I started volunteering. Basically, I was 6 when she was born. So, I mean, we got involved with the foundation. She got diagnosed at 6 months, and we got involved with the foundation like the next year. So I've always been involved with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. I love the work that they do. But that just kind of instilled the whole like, what do I want to call it? Like trait? I don't know. It's something about me because of that growing up that way and it being exposed to charity at such a young age. I now have like this thing where I have to be giving back, even if it's not the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which I, took a break from, but now I'm the chairperson of Best Buddies. Like it's just innately something I have to do. I can't not be giving my time, treasure, or talent in some way to people who need it.
So you have all of this. I know you wrote a book a couple years ago. You have the podcast, you have the company. So like, how the hell do you do so much?
I'm really organized. It's so funny. People ask me that all the time. And I'm like, honestly, like that is the answer. I'm like hyper organized. And I think that plays a big part in like time management and, handling your day and prioritizing tasks. And it all just goes back to being organized. Like that's how I do it all. I'm just very, what am I saying? Trying to say like stern. I'm very stern with myself about my schedule and my priorities.
Is there any other like tangible best practices or anything you do besides like a calendar? Is there anything like you could highlight that says like, I think that this gives me more ability to do more?
Yeah. Automation is your friend. I don't want to do automation to the point where personalization goes away. But I do use a lot of automation to help get my message out as people want to connect with me or want to buy the book or want to, download something that we offer or sign up for our newsletter. So I always say in my emails that are automated, hey, this really is me. And I read and respond to every comment. So if you want to reply and ask a question, book a call, whatever it is, I will read it and I will reply. And so I think that kind of helps soften the fact that yes, everybody's getting this automated email, but it truly is me and I truly do respond.
Are there any like tools you can highlight that help you with that?
Yeah. So with automation and calendars, I would say Calendly is really amazing. If you're an Outlook or a Microsoft Team user, they have bookings. It's called bookings. It's kind of hidden actually. So if you are a Microsoft Teams person, just look up bookings like through Google and it'll kind of walk you through where to find it. It's a little bit hidden, which is weird, but it can totally replace Calendly if you are a Microsoft Office person. And then for our CRM and automation, we use Keep, which used to be Infusionsoft. And so they have really great templates that are kind of like all the things you would think about that are just there. You can pop them in and setting those up are really easy, but they also have advanced automations, which I really love. So you can build out your own crazy long workflow, however you see fit. And so like, even for sales, because I do sales, like once somebody clicks the intake email that they want to have a chat with me, it tags them with free consultation. It books the meeting. It sends the intake questions. Like it saves you a lot of time. And AI, obviously using AI, I think it's not here to take our jobs. If we know how to use it correctly, it's here to make us better.
I think, what we've been calling it at my company is it's a thought partner. I don't ever copy and paste from let's highlight like ChatGPT.
Yeah. Don't do that.
It's a great thought partner. And it at the end of the day, it comes down to the inputs, right? Like the outputs are only as good as the inputs.
Yes.
But
yes.
Man, it's so nice.
It's a game changer. Yeah, it is. It will save you so much time, especially because I do a lot of writing. So, if I want to outline something or if I want to get some like pithy headline brainstorming stuff, it's great. It's fabulous. So
I posted something like totally unrelated, but I needed quotes and I need to tie the quotes for the person I was writing about to like stoicism. And literally all I did was like find Jalen Hurts quotes and tie them to real Stoic quotes. And it's like, and it was perfect.
Like in 10 seconds you had what would have taken you probably a couple of hours, right?
Yeah, days. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I'm a fan of using, I'll say smart automation. I'm very big on personalization. So you have to really walk the line between those two things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now taking a step back, do you mind just telling us a little bit more about the agency?
Yeah. So I started B Squared Media in 2012. So we're 11 years old. And gosh, it's been a wild ride. We started out, funnily enough, the first 6 months in business, I thought I was going to be one of those agencies that like built the social strategy and then passed it to you, and you went on and you, Josh, implemented that plan, right? And what I quickly found out after I closed my first client, which was a fintech client, built them their strategy, walked away. And about 2 weeks later, Josh is calling me like, yeah, so we don't really want to be doing the doing. Can you just do it for us? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I could do that for you. And then once I started doing it for them, I realized I was not going to be building strategies. I wasn't going to be the strategic partner. I was going to be the doer, the implementer, right? Not the visionary, but the implementer. So I quickly pivoted, and, that's what we decided to do. So that's where Done For You comes in, right? We do the things for you. So we do your social media for you. We do your advertising for you. We do your customer care management through social media for you. So it's more implementer versus visionary.
Does it ever become too much, or do you have like guardrails in place to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I think, as a business owner, what I've learned, one of the biggest and best pieces of advice I could give is in your agreements, make sure that your scope of work is crystal clear about what you will and what you will not do. And that way, if somebody has tries to do something that's outside of the scope, or, presents you with scope creep, you can say, hey, Josh, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this new project with you. It is outside of our scope of work if you look at the agreement. However, I can put together a proposal for this project, or, an hourly rate or whatever it is to get this done for you. Like, we'd love to do this for you, but it's not in your scope, so you're going to have to pay more.
It gives you a reason to charge more, I guess, is kind of what also not go crazy, but also, charge later more.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and I'm still learning. Like, we're still making little tweaks 11 years into our agreements and scope of works, because, things come up. When you hear something for the first time, what do? You shouldn't like let it go by and be like, oh yeah, let me just fix your agreement. You should make that iteration to all of the agreements moving forward.
Oh, agreements and contracts. Well, I'm not going to go too
Not a sexy topic, but important.
You mentioned the fintech customer was your first customer. How did you get them?
Oh boy. Okay. So I was working for a sales and marketing company in Texas, and I was their marketing director and their social media director. I was working like 80 hours a week. I was miserable. I was barely making any money. And my dad came to me one day and said, I got you a pitch with the CMO of our company. And they're USA Technologies was the company. They're the ones who put the cashless payment systems in the cabs in New York City. They do like cashless payment systems. And he said, but that's as far as I take it. Don't ask me for anything else. I got you the pitch. And if you win it, my only condition is you have to do it on your own. Like you have to like do this as, either Brooke, well, at the time, Brooke Ballard, or, create a company. So I was like, okay, sure. Like, not thinking I would win the pitch, right? And so I went in and I won the pitch, and basically B Squared was formed, a few days later.
So did you have any intent? Like, did your dad know that you were interested in this, or he's just like, I think you got the skills, I'm just going to throw you in there?
Yeah, well, I think it was both my dad and my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. They both saw like I was working really hard. I had created these social media systems for the company that I was working for, and they were making a ton of money off of me. Meanwhile, I'm working 80 hours a week, making, no money hardly. And they were like, look, you can do this. You built it for them. Do it for yourself. And so that's what pushed me in. I mean, they literally kind of like pushed me over the cliff. So I moonlighted for like maybe a year until I got my second client. And then I said, okay, sayonara, I'm going to do the thing.
That was literally my next question. It is obviously, getting the first customer is big and it starts everything off and sparks everything, but you're not really a company until almost you get that second customer. And that's when it becomes a trend. And that's when you start to build and grow and scale. So how did you get the second customer? My
boyfriend / now husband. Yeah. So he brought me this second client. And we had a long conversation. We were living together at the time. And he said, here's what I think you should do. I think you should quit your job. You've got 2 clients. It doesn't cover everything, but we can sell your car because we were living in New York City at the time. So we had a car. It was like very expensive to park it in a garage. We never used it. You can sell your car and use that as startup money. So I sold my Jeep Liberty for like $6,000, had these 2 clients, bought myself a Mac and some software and went for it. And it was very different now. But I mean, I was the only person doing all of the social stuff 365 days a year. So I had to work 7 days a week, 365 days a year for like 2 or 3 years until I finally got comfortable enough financially to hire my first person.
Let's dive into that. What moment, and was it too late or was it too early? Did you realize like, all right, time to hire someone else?
It was kind of 2 parts. It was like, do we have enough financially to pay someone, right? To hire someone other than myself? Oops. And did I have the mental capacity to keep going on my own 7 days a week? Because the big goal at that time was to get somebody to help with the weekend stuff. So I could just go to be a Monday through Friday person. Right. So that was our first hire. And it was perfect timing, but it was also early because I hadn't written down any of those processes. So all of the things that I did that were like the program, the deliverables for all of these agreements, I had never written down any of my processes. So I had to scramble at this first hire to write them all down because I needed to pass them to someone else to do. They just lived in my head.
What do those look like now? Like, what do those processes look like now? Are they like in an SOP doc, like a standard operating procedure doc? Are they like, how does that structure?
Yeah. So we have SOPs for everything we do. So I've now, once I learned that lesson, I learned it very well. And I went through and like everything that we do is documented. When we come up with a new service, it's documented. When we do a training for the team for a new service, it's documented. We do a video training, we do a live training. Like we make sure that we give everybody the tools to do the work that we say we're going to do in a grade A, top-notch kind of way. So it's almost paint by numbers for our team because literally you just copy and paste the punch list that we have. We use Basecamp as our project management tool. And that's where they all live. And you can literally copy and paste those templates and those punch lists over and over. So you never miss a beat, right?
And also make sure to have an SOP for when people like get fired or leave the company or something, because I've been in a company that didn't have that and I don't want to say what, but they're going to get, something's going to happen probably in the future that they're going to get screwed because they didn't have that process in place and things just got forgotten and everything. So yeah, that as well.
Yeah. That's another thing. Yeah. That and hiring,
and
hiring for what do you do when a client's unhappy? What do you do when a client wants a refund? What do you do when a client is giving you scope creep? I've actually written out scripts for our team members called asking the hard questions. So when clients ask them a hard question, they have an idea of like the B squared way to answer that.
Oh, that's great. Last question on hiring. Any good stories on bad hires or hires that went wrong or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we used to run like fast and crazy with our hiring. We were the opposite of what the thing says, which is hire slow, fire fast. We were the opposite. We would hire slow. No, we would hire fast and fire slow. So we were not the best. And we got lucky. We've had some like incredibly amazing people who have worked with us and still work with us. But we've also made some real doozies hiring. And so about 2 or 3 years ago, we totally revamped our hiring process. And we stuck the job of hiring with a few key people on our team so that process is followed. It's always the same people. And that has drastically changed the way we hire and onboard new people.
Is that the biggest difference from what you were doing before to now is basically streamlining it by making sure that it's the same X amount of people that are looking at this hire?
Yeah, it's the same amount of people. They follow a very detailed process all the way down to the questions that they ask during the interviews and scoring. We actually score people with a scorecard on how they answer questions. So if they don't make it to a certain score, we don't hire them, period. So, some people can have a good interview, but their personality seems amazing, but they don't answer the questions quite the way you'd want them to. Well, they don't get hired. I'm sorry. It's not about how great your personality is. It's like, how well can you do the job? So we have those. And then our onboarding process got totally revamped. And now we make them shadow with people. So for the first 90 days, they're kind of almost in training. So that we're not just cutting them loose on doing something before they're ready.
Any of those questions that you ask in an interview that you're open to sharing?
Oh my gosh. A lot of them are process driven. So your client is an ice cream shop and you need to get people on their social media pages to converse with you, through your post. What would you do? What kind of post would you create? So the perfect answer is I would be if you can only pick one flavor for the rest of your life, which would it be? And have it an open-ended, people comment kind of thing. That would be the best answer. The worst answer would be I would post our flavor of the week in a picture and say, yum, strawberry, how's that going to get people to converse with the brand? That's not going to work. So, they might score a 1, whereas the open-ended question person would score a 5.
Can you explain why the open-ended question is a better answer?
Because you're enticing your audience to converse with you, and that's not an easy task. I'll be the first to admit, but our tagline is think conversation, not campaign, because we truly believe that if you converse with your audiences, and this is customers and people who are potential customers through your social media channels, that you're highly more likely to be successful. And you are more successful than other people who are just throwing out buy my stuff content.
Say the line again. The campaign.
Think conversation, not campaign.
I love that because I've been in sales most of my life. And the day that I realized that I should stop asking just for that call on the first 2 emails and just ask a qualifying question or just get the conversation started, it changed everything for me. People weren't falling off anymore because at the end of the day, the more contact points that you get with that person, even if it's just hey, did you think about X? And they're oh, no, I haven't, blah, blah, blah. And you're just not asking for a call. You're just getting them more involved in the conversation, building the trust and all that kind of stuff. So I could not agree more with that.
Oh, I align with you now as a salesperson too, because I am the only salesperson for B Squared. And that is truly my sole goal when I book free consultations. It's all about the client or a potential client and asking those qualifying questions, because we all have different points of view. And when it comes to social media, we all have kind of different definitions of things. So when I say hey, Josh, so tell me about your customer care program on social. What are you doing? And you're oh, well, when, somebody comments on a post, we reply. Or when somebody sends a DM, we reply. And I'm that's social monitoring. What are you doing to actually retain or acquire customers through social media? And then they're so yeah, I love that you said qualifying questions. I think that's another point too. Business owners have to get comfortable and know what those qualifying questions are.
And understand there's almost qualifying answers as well. And how to identify them and then move it to the next step, because you don't want to spend too much time on this one question when the person has already checked off the box of I'm ready to move forward, right?
Yeah.
You just harp on that. You're we're not getting anywhere. You could have just moved forward. So I think that's
yeah. Qualifying answers are perfect for objections, right? Because you probably get similar objections as you're talking to people. And if you have those qualifying answers that match with, the most common objections that you get, they're going to do great.
I don't get in many sales conversations, so that was really nice to me. Obviously, it's more on marketing. So,
I'll nerd out with you on sales anytime. But yeah,
that's great. It's great. A few questions that I tend to ask at the end. If you had to teach something to other marketers, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing that marketers have issues with are putting things in a box, right? So like a lot of times you'll see the social tools post something, the best time to post is Wednesday at 11 or whatever. And then marketers take that blanket statement and apply it to their brand when really every brand is different. You have to set your own standards for each brand or client that you work with. And I think teaching marketers that critical thinking part of creating what those standards are, and then implementing that into some of the processes, the standard operating procedures that are specific to that client, right? So we have the SOPs, but then you have the brand SOPs or statements or whatever.
I think that's great because, again, to bring it to sales for another second, I was actually helping another company with their messaging and all their outbound cold messaging and all that kind of stuff. And I was showing them my results from Apollo, the sequence tool that we use, and they're like they're the best things I've ever seen. Like it's amazing, but it's in a completely different, like, I'm not selling. I'm not going to go into detail what it is, but like, I'm not selling. I'm basically trying to sell your company, which is a lot easier to ask. So I'm like, hey, look, I know that these reply rates and these open rates are great, but like, you cannot benchmark to this. Like, you never know what the industry, you never know the lead list that you have and all that kind of stuff.
There's so many variables. Yeah.
You can literally put the same exact messaging and sequence together in two different lists, and one will get 50% open rate and the other one will get 10% open rate. And like, you can dive in there and understand, but like, what the heck, it almost doesn't make sense at some point.
Right. No, I love that you said that, because like we'll get companies who will come in and they're like, oh, you already work with a luxury appliance brand. Well, then we're not sure we want to work with you. I'm like, why? Because we have all of this experience in your industry. And by the way, some of the strategy that we implement for them may work for you, but you have your own stuff. Completely. And those variables are going to change the results for you. So like, I don't see it as competition or something like that. I actually see it as like a strength.
They just to bookend that. They asked me, they were like, oh, what should we be aiming for like in the beginning? And maybe I'm wrong on this, but I was like, nothing. Like, you shouldn't have a number that you're trying to hit.
Zero expectations. No, yeah, it's
no
true.
Idea. Just hit the first one, push out the first one, 0. If you get 0%, whatever, and then just get more. And then then you can start to benchmark, and then you know what a good sequence looks like versus a bad sequence. But like, don't be like, we need to hit a 50% reply rate or open rate. Cause like, you have no idea going into it.
That reminds me of something that my mastermind group told me. It was, I'm probably going to butcher how it gets said, but it's like, I can't give you a prescription without a diagnosis, because that would be malpractice.
Huh. Yeah, I think
right. So like, I can't tell you what the prescription is, like what you should look for until there's a diagnosis. You need the data, right? And then you can give the prescription. So you need those data, the benchmarks, and then you can probably tell them.
That's funny. The two founders at the company I'm working at now, they love the phrase, I don't want to be prescriptive. So for you to say that, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's probably the easier, better way to say it. That's like the marketing way to say it.
Right. Well, they just say it all the time. And I'm like, it's funny for you to say that as well, because it's totally true. Are you guys looking to hire any positions right now?
Not currently, but we are pretty much, I don't want to say always hiring, because it sounds like we're always hiring, but like every quarter we probably make a hire. So we're usually looking for community managers. Mm-hmm. So, because we do the social customer care, we need a lot of people who can handle like high volume. They can work early mornings, late nights, weekends, all different times. So not at the moment, but that'll probably be the next one that comes up, and it'll probably come up sooner rather than later.
And then last question, any books, podcasts, newsletter, anything recommendations?
Well, I just got invited to be the host of a new podcast for Social Media Examiner, and it's called The Marketing Agency Show. And it's all about being an agency owner and the challenges that we face. And it's going to be the only show that like gets down to the nitty gritty. Like, we're going to talk about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. So I'm going to have guests on the show who are willing to like pull back the curtain and be like, yeah, here's where we failed. Here's how bad it was, and here's how we fixed it. So definitely check that out.
No, that was perfect for obviously our listeners being in the same bucket. Any book recommendations or?
The last book that I read, it's a friend of mine, Evelyn Starr, wrote a book called Teenage Waste Brand. And it's all about the growing pains that you have. So you're a startup and everything's crazy. But then when you get to be a teenager, other growing pains happen and you're faced with these challenges and learning how to scale and get past the humps and the lumps that come with being a teenager or a teenage brand. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend you read it if you are nearing your teenage phase or you are in your teenage phase.
I like that a lot. Also, The Who is like my second favorite classic rock band for Teenage Wasteland, or Baba O'Reilly, where that came from. So I love that. As we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere. You could just Google Brooke, Brooke Sellas, Sellas. I think I'm the only Brooke Sellas out there so far. That's been my research. But you can also go to b-squared.media to see our website, all of the services we offer, or find me there to connect. Or sign up for a newsletter and you'll get that little email from me, and just know if you reply, I will respond.
Awesome. Brooke, thank you so much. I'm sure you get this all the time, that your energy is incredible. And this has been one of my favorite episodes. And for those of you who learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality guests like Brooke. And as always, thank you for listening. Brooke, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.